When the cops showed up, Karen pointed at me like I was a criminal, until I handed them the deed and said, "I own this street." The look on her face changed everything, and that's when I decided she was leaving my neighborhood for good. Karen's voice was shrill as she pointed at us, clipboard shaking. "You can't park here," she yelled, dialing 911 right in front of my wife. My 7-year-old son, Caleb, hid behind my leg, confused and scared. My wife, Lisa, tried to calm him while I kept my voice steady. "Ma'am," I said, "we're not part of your HOA." That's when her face twisted like she'd swallowed something sour. "Oh, we'll see about that," she snapped. "This is our community." Her finger trembled as she pointed toward my truck. Within minutes, the flashing blue lights arrived. 2 officers stepped out, hands near their belts, looking between Karen and me. "She's lying," Karen barked. "They're trespassing, and their kid was running through the lawn." The officers turned toward me for explanation. I handed them the deed, freshly signed 2 weeks ago. "Before we go on, please, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I want to see how many families, parents, and neighbors are feeling this story across the country tonight. Your comment helps this message reach more people who've faced unfair HOA rules too." "Actually," I said calmly, "I'm the new landlord here." Karen's face turned ghost white. The silence that followed was heavy enough to drown in. The officers looked at each other, then nodded politely and walked away. Karen stammered, "What do you mean, landlord?" I smiled slightly. "You'll find out soon enough." As her jaw tightened, I already knew how this story would end. I was done being polite. My next move would change everything. It started with a quiet drive through Orlando on a sunny afternoon. Lisa and I had been hunting for a property for almost a year. We weren't rich, just smart with savings. My father taught me one thing: buy land, not luxury. So we found this quiet neighborhood. It had a small lake, tall palm trees, and homes that whispered, "Peace." I didn't know peace had a price tag named HOA. The realtor warned us about the Homeowners Association. "They're strict," she said. "Especially the president, Karen Whitmore." I laughed. Of course her name's Karen. We closed the deal under my LLC. The plan was simple: rent out the homes, keep things quiet, stay low. But that peace didn't last. On move-in day, Karen appeared like a storm in lipstick, clipboard in hand, eyes narrow with suspicion. She didn't say hello. She didn't smile. She just pointed to my driveway. "You'll need to remove that truck. HOA doesn't allow work vehicles." I replied kindly, "I'm not part of your HOA, ma'am." She froze, processed the words, and said, "We'll see about that." That phrase replayed in my mind like a threat. Lisa squeezed my hand that evening. "She's trouble," she whispered. She was right. I didn't know then, but Karen was about to start a war she couldn't win. Within days, we received 3 letters taped to our door. Violation: unapproved mailbox color. Violation: lawn too tall. Violation: child's toy visible. Each letter had Karen's signature at the bottom, circled in red ink like a teacher's correction. Lisa was furious. "She watches everything," she said, shutting the blinds. Even Caleb stopped playing outside, afraid she'd yell again. I tried diplomacy. "Karen," I said one morning, "I respect your rules, but I don't belong to this HOA." She smirked. "Everyone belongs here." Her tone wasn't about rules, it was about control. She thrived on it, like it gave her purpose. That night, I reviewed my property file again. The HOA boundary stopped 3 houses before ours. Karen had no jurisdiction. Still, she doubled down. She sent photos of my truck to community members, spreading rumors that I was lowering property value. Lisa suggested we move. I refused. "No one bullies my family off our land," I said, my voice sharp. I drafted a letter to the HOA board explaining the boundary. They ignored it. Karen was the board. She ruled through fear. But fear works both ways. And soon, Karen would realize she picked the wrong man to threaten. Saturday morning, I was teaching Caleb how to fly his small drone by the lake. His laughter filled the air. Then came that familiar voice. "That drone's a violation." Karen stormed down the path in flip-flops and fury. Lisa stepped between us, calm but firm. Karen, please. He's 7. Karen sneered. Rules are rules. I'll fine you. I exhaled slowly. I told you, we're not part of your HOA. That's when she lost it. Karen pulled out her phone and yelled, then I'll call the police. You people don't listen. Caleb started crying, clutching my hand. Lisa tried to soothe him, whispering, it's okay, baby. But my patience had hit its limit. I said quietly, do what you have to do. She thought she could scare us, humiliate us. As she barked into the phone, I glanced at Lisa. Get the folder from the truck, I said. She knew exactly which one. The blue folder, property titles, HOA maps, and all legal documents proving ownership. I smiled as the sirens approached. The scene was set. Karen had just called the cops on her landlord. The cops arrived fast, parking by the curb. Karen rushed to them, waving her clipboard like it was a badge. Officers. They're violating HOA code. They're kids flying a drone over restricted property, she shouted, breathless with excitement. The younger officer adjusted his sunglasses. Ma'am, that's not a crime. But she kept pushing, eyes blazing. Then charge them with trespassing. They don't belong here, she hissed, pointing toward us. I handed over my folder. Actually, officer, I just bought this entire street. I'm the new property owner under Grayson Holdings. The silence was priceless. The officers blinked, processing what I'd said. Karen's mouth fell open like a dropped book. You're lying, she sputtered. The older cop smiled faintly. Ma'am, he's not. His name's on the deed. Karen turned crimson, her anger collapsing into confusion. But he's not in the HOA, she stammered. That's right, I said softly. Because I own it now. The officers nodded, thanked me, and left. Karen stood frozen, the weight of her mistake sinking in. That was the day her clipboard lost its power. The next morning, I wrote a letter addressed to Ms. Karen Whitmore. Direct. Unmistakable. It read, effective immediately, your tenancy is terminated. Please vacate within 30 days. Signed, Landlord. Lisa watched me slide it into an envelope. You're really doing it? She asked quietly. I nodded. I gave her chances. We drove to her house. She was watering flowers, pretending nothing happened. I handed her the envelope. What's this? She asked. I smiled. Just a quick notice. Her face drained of color as she read. You can't evict me, she shrieked. You're abusing power. I said calmly, you called cops on my family. That's abuse. She trembled, clutching her clipboard. I'll fight this. I replied, you can try. But remember, I own the ground you're standing on. Lisa exhaled, a small smile playing on her lips. Caleb watched from the truck, innocent and curious. Karen tore the paper in half, her voice cracking, this isn't over. I turned away, replying, oh, it already is. The sun was bright that morning. For the first time, our home truly felt like ours. Karen refused to leave quietly. She rallied her followers, neighbors who once feared her, to protest the eviction. Lisa baked cookies for the neighbors, breaking the ice. Caleb played outside again, laughing without fear. I started attending community meetings, not as a landlord, but as a neighbor who listened. Karen stopped showing up after that. Rumor said she was moving out to live with her sister in Tampa. I didn't celebrate her fall. I just felt relief. Some battles aren't about revenge, they're about peace. Still, every time I passed her old house, I remembered that moment by the lake. The moment she called the cops, and learned who truly owned the ground beneath her feet. Months later, a letter arrived addressed to me. The return address, K. Whitmore, Tampa, Florida. Lisa hesitated before opening it. Do you want to read it? She asked. I nodded, curious. Inside was a single handwritten note. I was wrong. I let control ruin me. Thank you for teaching me humility. It surprised me. Karen had actually apologized. Lisa teared up, whispering, maybe she finally learned. I folded the letter gently and placed it in my drawer. Some grudges deserve peace, not punishment. That evening, I watched Caleb chase fireflies in the yard, laughter echoing through the warm air. Lisa leaned against me, smiling. "Feels like home now, doesn't it?" she said softly. "Yeah," I replied, "it finally does." The neighborhood had transformed, not because of ownership, but understanding. For the first time, I didn't feel anger when I thought of Karen. Just closure. But deep down, I knew something. Every neighborhood has its own Karen, waiting to be reminded of her limits. Years passed. Caleb grew tall, strong, and kind, traits I hoped would outlive my anger. He once asked, "Dad, why didn't you fight her harder?" I smiled. "Because, son, sometimes winning is just standing your ground." He nodded, understanding more than I expected. Lisa opened a small real estate agency by then. We called it Grayson Lakeside Homes. We specialized in peaceful living, a quiet promise we kept to every tenant. People still asked about the HOA story. I'd laugh and say, "Let's just say we had a difference in leadership styles." What began as chaos became a lesson in control, patience, and quiet revenge. Lisa framed the eviction notice, hanging it in her office as a reminder. "For every Karen," she'd joke. Sometimes I drove past that old house. It looked smaller now, less intimidating. The trees we planted had grown taller, shading the lake where it all began. That's when I realized our biggest battles build the homes we're meant to live in. Now, decades later, I sit on that same porch, gray-haired and content, watching kids ride bikes down the street. Lisa rocks beside me, her laughter soft as the breeze. Caleb visits often with his own children. He once told me, "Dad, you handled that whole Karen thing like a legend." I laughed. Or just an old landlord with patience. Our story became neighborhood lore, something people whispered about during barbecues and block parties. Every time someone complains about HOA trouble, they say, "Don't mess with the Graysons." Karen never returned. But her story lives on, a cautionary tale about pride and power. The lake glimmers at sunset, the same way it did that day she called the cops. Sometimes, I think back to that frightened 7-year-old boy clutching his toy boat. He learned early that standing firm isn't loud, it's steady. And justice doesn't always come with anger, it comes with peace. As the sun dips below the Orlando skyline, I whisper to Lisa, "It's finally quiet, just